Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am excited because I have Gil Hova on Skype. Say hello, Gil.
Hello, Gil.
Hey, Gil. And Gil runs Formal Ferret Games. Lots of fun stuff. The Networks is probably one of the biggest that you've done, but there's
It is the
also
biggest, yeah.
the biggest is Wordsy and a few
hmm
other titles. But just to get started, Gil, I like to ask just about everyone I have on sort of how they got into games and board gaming, but in particular, sort of took that leap into Kickstarter and being your own publisher. A lot of the people who watch my stuff are interested in that. So, what's your origin story when it comes to this whole scene?
My origin story. Well, I was a very lonely and sad kid. Aw.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. Like all origin stories. It's very sad and bleak. I played a lot of games, but I had to play them solo because I didn't know anyone who would play these kinds of games. Because for some reason, I don't know how I came across them, but when I was in like junior high school, I came across Car Wars. And that led me to Illuminati and Ogre. This was like the mid-'80s, mind you. This is like Steve Jackson, mid-'80s, and that led me to West End games, Paranoia, Star Wars role-playing game,
And you're
all
playing
that
these all
stuff.
by yourself. You're doing.
Oh, yeah.
You're the DM and the player and the role. You're all roles.
Well, if it's like Car Wars, I'm playing all sides by myself. If it's D&D, I'm just reading the source books and like looking wistfully up at the sky. So
this is
yeah.
sort of bleak and depressing.
Isn't it? Isn't it? You just picture the music in the background.
So then what happens?
Occasionally, like I would play a board game, and even games like those, they were all like, they're all pretty harsh games, So my idea of board games, my impression of board games, like everyone else's, is board games are these savage things where you lose friendships, etc., etc. I love video games. Video games at the time had been my first love. And board games were, this really harsh thing for people who could afford to lose a lot of friends. And so...
Or imaginary friends in your case.
Yeah. So I played a lot of video games, and I wanted to be a video game designer. Even since I was a kid, I wanted to be a video game designer. And in my early 20s, I figured, okay, if I'm going to be a video game designer, maybe I'll go back to board games and start studying board games and see what I can learn from them and then see if I can apply them to video games. Well, it turns out part of my studying board games is to find out these euros that people were talking about.
Sure.
I wasn't sure what a euro was, but I went to a convention and I played Settlers of Catan, and more importantly, I played Puerto Rico, and it was Puerto Rico that hooked me.
That's
It was
good game.
Puerto Rico. Yeah, when I was playing it, I suddenly realized, wait, nobody's like, you can't attack someone. You can just sort of maximize your profit. And yeah, there are ways to play like offensively in Puerto Rico. If someone has a lot of corn, then you pick captain, that sort of thing. But it's not like you could just reach out and blow up their building. So that was a revelation to me, that, you could play games and they weren't about like being outwardly nasty. And I started playing more games, now that I was in my mid-20s and actually had real friends.
And
like
some money, presumably, a little.
a little bit of money, yeah, actually, which wasn't terrible. But the nice thing about that point was that I was actually much more of a functioning human being. So I was able to. And it's funny though. Before board games, I was very reclusive. I didn't leave the house much, and board games really gave me a way to help me communicate with people and reach out. And now I'm. I seem like an extrovert. I pass it as an extrovert. I'm really an introvert. I need time to recharge. But a lot of people find me very outgoing and gregarious, which, in my early 20s would have been unthinkable. So
where's the jump into actually sort of, because your first game also wasn't with Formal Ferret.
Oh, no. So this only takes us up to 2000. So I start making these board games, and they're awful. I mean, they're just absolutely dreadful. Like, I am making these board games that people play, and they're like, this is really bad, Gil. This is really, really bad. And it takes me some time to go from bad to making a kind of okay game. Not that good, but just kind of okay. And then it takes me some more time to get a little better and a little better. Eventually, I got published by Z-Man Games. My first published game was Prolix in 2010. And mind you, I started trying to seriously design games in 2000. that tells you like just how bad I was
But
when I
that's a
started.
pretty, I mean, well, taking it took you 10 years, but that's actually, I mean, first game published with Z-Man, that's a big deal. I mean, that you sort of, nowadays people work up through these Kickstarters, but you jumped right into a serious
Well, that was the
project.
year that Z-Man published 40 games in 1 year. So, at that point, whatever works,
It
right?
counts, man. It
It
counts.
counts. It totally counts. Yeah, but yeah, it was nice that it was with a reputable publisher. My second game was Battle Merchants with Minion Games. That was in 2014, and it was a year after that. I think 2015 is when the light bulb really went on, and I was like, oh, wait a second. Oh, this is what I'm trying to do when I design a game, and I feel like my game design got a lot better. When that light bulb went off.
Well,
And that was
again, we're not talking far off. I mean, this is 3 years ago.
Yeah, that really wasn't that far off. I mean, I'd been like working, and then suddenly like it just something in my head went ding, and I'm like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think that really helped me.
And is that now? So are now we at the networks? Is that what?
So at that time, I was working on a game called Primetime that would eventually become the network. So a really big thing was in 2014, actually 2013. I got really, really lucky, and I got invited to the Gathering of Friends. And I hate to sound like, this convention changed me, but it did, because that was a convention where I got to spend 10 days with all these people for whom games was their lives. Games were their life. That's proper English. And it really changed me in a few ways. First off, my goal was to get Primetime signed with a publisher at the time, because I still viewed myself as a hobbyist designer with a day job who pitched games. And I realized, I sort of took a survey of the room, and I realized there were probably 4 times as many designers as publishers in this room, and I just realized how much I was swimming upstream. And, the reaction I got to Primetime ranged from no to, well, I like it, but we got to change the scoring system, to, yeah, I like it, but it's got to go to the back of our queue. You probably won't see it in print for another couple of years.
Yeah. And hold on, let me just interject, please, because for those who don't know, the Gathering of Friends is fairly exclusive convention of sorts. It's a invite-only industry veteran event. I don't know what month it is, but whatever, yearly event.
It's every April in Niagara Falls, right. And I mean, it's evolved to an industry convention, but it's really not meant to be an industry convention. It was just supposed to be a bunch of friends getting together, and they would invite their friends and so on and so forth. So, and there are a bunch of people who go there who are not affiliated with the industry. They just want to play games for 10 days. But yeah, it really did become... it's become a kind of industry event, and I always feel a little uncomfortable talking about it because I don't want to... Yeah, I know, right? I don't want to feel like...
Hey, man, if it makes you feel better, I've not been invited, so...
No, it doesn't make me feel better. It makes me feel worse. So, yeah, I feel like just a little bit of guilt about it, I guess.
Hey,
but
it was a powerful moment and set you up for making some fantastic products. Because we're talking about the networks, I just want to take a second. That is a great game, sir. I mean, I reviewed it, and I think I learned it at a convention. I want to talk to you about conventions, but then I've played it a number of times since, and there's so much that's fabulous, both in terms of the design, but the art direction and theming, and then the production and the quality, and some of the ways that you use that scoring board and flipping it around, and it's just smart all over the place. And
thank you.
And just because I haven't had a chance, the expansion's like on Kickstarter, like tomorrow, or Tuesday the 5th, right?
This episode I think is going to drop on Monday the 4th, and yes, the Kickstarter, is that right?
I think the 4th is Labor Day, so probably the 5th. Or
okay. All right, so this episode drops at some point in early September.
Yeah.
And if you are watching this on September 5th, then yes, the Kickstarter has launched today. Awesome. If you are watching this on the 6th, the Kickstarter has launched yesterday, and so on and so forth.
But so just, I mean, quickly, I mean, is it just expanding on the programming and all the cool stuff you can do in that game, or what?
So
the elevator pitch?
Yeah, the big thing that the executives gives you are executives, which is effectively a new player board that you get that grants you special player powers. So everybody has their own thing that they get to do
cool.
in the game. And this really does change everybody's game because I just came back from a demo of it. I played as Mr. Flicks, so I was a streaming service, so I no longer had time slots. Like, all my shows were always in their proper time slots.
Significant.
Yes,
impact.
yes,
That's
significant.
Huge.
But every executive also has a liability. My liability was every time I changed genre in a time slot, like if I changed, say, a sitcom into a sports show, I'd lose viewers.
Right.
Because my viewers want that consistency. So I'm playing the game in a different way. Now, someone else was Ms. Specialist. She wanted to get as many shows as possible of the same type. And there are these turbocharged cards. They're called mogul cards, and they give you a ton of viewers. And you can only get one in the game unless you're Ms. Specialist, in which case you get 2 mogul cards, or you may have up to 2 mogul cards. But in order to do that, you get your first mogul card at 4 shows of the same genre, and your second at 6 shows of the same genre if you're Ms. Specialist.
Right.
So, yeah?
Oh, sorry. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no worries. The downside of Ms. Specialist is you don't get a 3-show genre bonus.
Got it. Well, so listen. So whether it's yesterday, today, or tomorrow, that thing's going live.
Yes.
And it's worth checking out. But actually, one of the things. So you release the networks. It's one of your ferrets.
Yes.
It's one of his ferrets.
This is Leela. She came out to say hello. This is Leela. Hi, humans.
Awesome.
Hi.
That is awesome. I have to tell you, I totally dig ferrets. My friend had a bunch as a kid, but I'm also amazingly allergic. Like, I don't know if you've had other people over who are allergic to ferrets, but it's like there's cats and then ferrets are like
really?
Yeah,
oh my gosh!
Not like hives, but like sneezing and.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's unfortunate.
But
yeah,
they're super cute, man.
Yeah, they're adorable. Unfortunately, you're living in the wrong state.
They're not allowed in California? Is that something?
They are not allowed in California, and it is horribly stupid. But this is not a political podcast. Anyway.
I grew up in New York. So you did the networks, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was successful, but that wasn't a mind-blowing campaign. I mean, was it?
Oh, it was over $100,000.
No, so was it? That's pretty awesome.
It did quite well. Yes, it did very, very well.
But the thing that I really wanted to talk to you about in this interview was one of the things that has always impressed me about you is, from what I've seen, and I don't know when it started. It may have just started the first con I was at. I mean, we sort of rolled it around the same time as I did Liftoff and Forward. But is you have an awesome convention presence for a small guy in terms of booth quality. You have staff at the booth. You have product. And actually, that's a place where I still feel I fail at a lot, especially because this is sort of a part-time hobbyist thing for me. But I've just not been able to get into that groove. And when I see you, I'm always like, this guy's got it. So, could you take us through that? Just give some perspective. Like, when did you start? How did you build up? What's your advice? I just think that would be hugely valuable to people.
All right. So a few things. First off, I love conventions. Ever since I went to that first convention where I played Puerto Rico, I was just blown away at the community and the fact that you get to sort of fall out of time and just play games the whole way through. Now, obviously, my days at conventions these days, I don't play games, but I do get to show off my own games, which I really enjoy. So that's number one. Number two, I have a few part-time jobs, and I try to have the flexibility where if I need to run off to a convention, I can do that, and I'm not nobody's relying on me for anything, and I don't have to ask for time off or anything like that. Because I did have a day job at one point where it was much harder to get convention time.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a big part for hobbyists,
vacation. Exactly, and I think that's one reason why I'm able to do this, because I tried to set up my lifestyle in a way that I could do conventions if necessary. And for me, I think they're really important to make me. I mean, when people email me, they say "you guys" and they say "how are you all doing?" not realizing that I'm just one person. Formal Ferret is really a one-man operation.
Yeah.
Because I think, between my Kickstarter presence, my social media presence, and my convention presence, I seem to be a much larger operation than I actually am, which I guess means that it's. I don't mean to fool people. That's not my intention. But I think it is important to get yourself out there, and I think you hit a critical mass, or one hits a critical mass, once you get past a certain following. Once you get a few 2,000-3,000 people following you, you start. I think word really does start to spread at that point, and conventions are really good at doing that. Now, there's a few caveats in that one convention alone will not do it. Like, people have this misconception that if they go to a convention during their Kickstarter, or God forbid they launch their Kickstarter at a convention, they'll get this huge boost. And first off, don't launch your campaign at a convention.
No.
Because you need to be by the computer.
No.
You need to be 100% focused on the campaign when it launches on the first day.
I will note that it's not necessarily bad to do a convention during your slump in the middle of a campaign. But
absolutely.
I completely agree. Don't do it when you're launching.
Yes. That said, I've noticed, at least from my experience, that when you do a convention in the middle of your campaign, even if it's an enormous convention like an Essen or a Gen Con, you'll get a bump, but it's not going to be a massive bump. You're not suddenly going to get $10,000, $20,000 from that.
For sure. And probably not going to be ROI positive, right? It's one thing if you go to conventions or you enjoy conventions and it happens to fall in there and you're using it. But if you're like, should I go to Gen Con to promote my thing? You're going to end up spending $4,000 on flight and hotels or whatever, and see less than that in a bump in your campaign, right?
Yeah. For a Kickstarter campaign, absolutely. For a Kickstarter so there's all these ways to sort of do guerrilla marketing at a convention. For example, so I'll give you an example. At Gen Con, a booth will set you back about $1,600. Just for a 10x10, that's assuming you can even get a booth, which at Gen Con is not a given. You have to literally win a lottery, because they have many more people who want booths than booths available, so they actually have to hold lotteries every year to get people in. I missed, I think, one year, and I got in the next. So,
and then once you're in, you then have you then get in front of the lottery. So
yes. Then you continue to be in. So, however, there's. I mean, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I have a 10x10, and I really need a 10x20. I mean, I get people backing into the aisle, half of the aisle is blocked because there's people who stop in my booth and want to see, and a 10x20 would be, but Gen Con just doesn't have the space, No. They're really, really filled up. So, but point being that if you are running a Kickstarter and you don't have revenue, that you don't have anything that'll bring in revenue, that'll offset the cost of the booth and the hotel and all that stuff, then you probably just want to run a bunch of events. I mean, you still have to pay for the convention. You still have to pay for getting there. It's still not going to be terribly cheap, but having a booth and not having anything to offset that cost is just going to make that even worse.
Totally.
Plus, once you have a booth and you're handling money, you literally cannot do that alone. You need a booth staff. Once you have a booth staff, you need to share the hotel room with them.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Some extra costs associated with that.
But so just to back up for a second. So we sort of sidetracked into good whether or not to do it during a Kickstarter. But just the Kickstarter is over. I have product. I want to start having awareness. I want to get into that scene. Did you work your way up with smaller cons and then go to bigger cons, or did you just dive into a con and go whole hog? Because you have that huge banner. Did you work your way to that, or did you just say, I'm doing it, and took the dive?
My first con was Origins. I think Origins 2014. Yeah, that's I'd say it's a mid-sized con, but it certainly is not a small convention. I got an entrepreneur booth at Origins, which meant that when the hall opened, I heard this cheer from the very opposite end of the hall, and 30 minutes later, I would see people start to trickle into the aisle in front of me.
And in Origins, those are some pretty depressing spots, I had to tell you.
Yes, those are some really, really rough spots. I guess my point being, you mentioned ROI. even if you have product, I would not expect to make a profit on like your first year of conventions, because people are just learning who you are. You have to build a following, and that really only happens once you show up year after year. Because what you're doing at a convention is you're building credibility. You're building. I hate to say building a brand. I mean, brand just sounds so like such a cold word. Brand, but you really are building credibility with game fans.
It's
they see you
awareness
year
and
after
the
year.
audience.
Yeah. People at this point, I think enough people know who I am, and some people even know who Formal Ferret Games is, and they know that I'm around. They know that I'm here. I'm a factor on the convention scene. Because if you see a company once at a convention and then you never see them again, that's then you forget about them. But you see them over and over and over again, it starts to make an impression. Like, okay, these guys are a factor now.
And I'll even share that for my part. I haven't gotten into the next year. I'm thinking about doing more of the bigger cons where I'm actively in it. But I have for the last 3 years done a local one, a KubaCon, which isn't tiny, but it's not huge. But you can really see once you're there year over year, people recognize you. They say hello. They're used to seeing your stuff. They notice when something's new there. And there's just you start becoming a part of that environment, and that people start expecting and looking to see you and finding out what's new. So I mean, size is one thing of the convention, but it really comes. It is consistency.
Yeah. I think that's what you're trying to build with conventions. If you break even in your first year, I think that's an amazing result. As for you, Edo, I mean, you've built up enough that you've got a bit of a head start. And now if you show at Origins or Gen Con, I think there's a lot of people who'd recognize you, especially with a game like Herbaceous. Oh, you're the ones who do Herbaceous. You'd get a lot of that reaction.
This year, I've been talking a lot with Keith Mateka, who does Role Player, and he's helping motivate me to sort of go in and take it on. It's just that work consideration, right? I don't quite have that flexibility, and because it adds that extra day, right? You suddenly, whereas you might for Gen Con be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, now and some Sunday, now you're Wednesday, Thursday. It's just that you tack on that extra day or of prep. So, but I'm going to step it up. But no, I agree that Pencil First Games has come a long way. But
no doubt.
And so in terms of you started at Origins, and so there's some different things you started doing. How did you evolve in terms of promotion and booth setup, and are you a simple guy, complex? I mean, what's your thought process on how to present your booth?
From the very start, I wanted my booth to be a place where somebody could sit down and try my games. I know some people do booth setups where it's pretty much just like a retail setup. So they have the kind of booth setup where they set up the table right across the booth so nobody actually gets into the booth. And then they have several games set up. And that's an efficient way to show a lot of games. But people who don't know your games, they won't be able to sit down and play. So instead of blocking off the booth, I rotate the table so that people can actually walk into the booth.
You have a good demo setup every time I see you.
I try that. It's tricky with a 10 by 10. Okay, when I say 10 by 10, let me make sure people know what I mean. So the dimensions of the booth, at least in the U.S., measured in square feet, 10 foot by 10 foot, it tends to be the smallest booth. That's sort of your default booth, and they're usually built together in blocks. So the next biggest booth you could get is two 10 by 10s together, which is a 20 by 10. So at this point at Origins, I have a 20 by 10, and at Gen Con I have a 10 by 10. I hope to have a 20 by 10.
And in comparison at Origins, I just remember you've got your big logo in the back. There's space. Yep. You've got multiple tables. Where in a 10 by 10, it was like backdrop, boxes, one table with Gil sitting at it, playing with a couple. It seemed much tighter.
It's much tighter, and I'll give you one other little complications. The larger American conventions, like Origins and Gen Con, they have regulations that stipulate you are not to show cardboard to anybody, like a case of games. Nobody's supposed to see that. So in a 10 by 10 booth, you also have to figure out a place for your extra stock. So that's also a reason, and it's the reason why I have that really big banner. I have a big backdrop.
Ooh,
That's like
that's a good trick. That
is exactly why I have that. So all my cases are hidden behind there, and then I have a couple of roll-up banners to just put around the edges, and I have those blocking the view of the case. If I ever need to get a new case, I go behind the backdrop, I pull out another case, and there we have it.
That's a neat little. That's a AAA trick, sir.
Well, I mean, it's what you got to do, you know. So there's all these little things that you start picking up at conventions. But yeah.
Speaking of which, I think you single-handedly started the fist bump at conventions, right?
No, that wasn't me. I learned that from Eric Martin of BGG.
Ah.
So here's what happened. In the end of 2015, I got sick at 3 different conventions. I know I got sick at BGG Con. I got sick at New York Toy Fair, and I got sick at one more convention. I'm trying to remember which one it was. But it was like 3 straight conventions. And when I say I got sick, I mean I missed literal days. Like at least one full day was just spent in bed and not on the convention floor. And I was like, this has to change. Something has to change. And so at the time, I was trying the old use a lot of hand sanitizer trick. And that wasn't enough. So instead, I know Eric Martin did a lot of fist bumping, so I started doing fist bumping. Since then, I've never been knocked out for more than a few hours by Concrud. I still occasionally get hit by Concrud, but it's never as bad. It's usually enough that I can work through.
And if you've never worked a booth or been at a convention as somebody who's a purveyor of something, you just have no idea how many people, reasonably so, expect to shake your hand. Or fist bump is a good equivalent. But it's not really something that's easy to avoid. And you want to shake people's hands. I mean, it's a physical connection thing. So I think the fist bump's a great alternative, but it really is like not. Once you're at a booth, suddenly. Especially if you're demoing, if people are playing with you, it becomes this thing where people expect to be able to like shake your hand or fist bump.
Tom Vassell gets on me because he doesn't believe that the fist bump is necessarily more sanitary, and he might be right. You know, all I know, I've got this anecdotal evidence, but hey, if it's placebo, I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, hey. Yeah, whatever. I mean, I try to mix it around, and you get used to it. But even this Gen Con, I came back and I got knocked out for at least a day. Now I happen to be sharing a room.
2-hour nap.
Yeah, I happen to be sharing a room with somebody who was certainly coughing a bunch.
Oh,
okay,
that would do it.
Yeah. So we heard a little bit about your setup. We heard a bit about how to stay sanitary.
Yep.
You know, we're coming to about 30 minutes mark. To the 30-minute mark? But what is there anything else? You know, again, somebody who's getting into the con scene. What else might you say they should keep in mind?
Okay, so you have product. You have to be sure you can get the product into the convention area. So the main way to do that is to use the official convention warehouse. And just be warned that is the most expensive option.
Right.
Because what they're going to do is they're going to charge this thing called drayage. And drayage is the fee that they charge to take the product from the warehouse to your booth. And so you're probably going to you may find yourself spending up close to $700, you know, just to ship the game to the warehouse and then to the booth. So there are ways around that. Like if you have, like let's say you work with if you're a Kickstarter creator, maybe you have a fulfiller like Fun Again. Maybe Fun Again is at the show. You could say, hey, Fun Again or whomever, can you take this? Can you take my stock with you? And so I mentioned that because that's Fun Again did that at Gen Con, which was really awesome. And they're going to do that at BGG Con. Obviously, they're not at every con. They're not going to be able to do it for every show.
Sure.
But there are workarounds. There might be like a bigger publisher that you work with, like, you know, hey, 800-pound Gorilla Games. I don't know of a publisher named 800
Good name.
But yeah, it's a great name, isn't it? 800. Anyone take that? 800-pound Gorilla Games. You're clearly, you know, you've got this 40 by 40 booth, and you're driving a truck, can you load my pallet onto the truck and just take it over, and I'll send you $100, $200. And there's a lot of companies that will do stuff like that.
That's a good deal for them, right? They have a little extra space. It cuts their costs.
Yep, and they save a lot of money on drayage. So you have to look for little shortcuts like that. Another thing is how to handle money.
Okay.
So, I mean, I use Square for credit cards, and that's a really good way to do it. Just be advised, if you ever go abroad, your Square will not work abroad. So, fortunately, I found that international conventions, at least the two that I go to, Essen Spiel and UK Games Expo, people tend to be very cash-oriented at those conventions. So it's okay to not have that. But that leads us to cash. You want to be really, really, really super careful with cash. Get a cash box. If you have a cash box, you want to make sure that cash box is not within easy reach. I usually hide it underneath a table, and I have tablecloths so that nobody sees. You don't look around and just see the cash box.
Right.
If the cash box is out on a table, it's at a place where nobody is near it, or the closest person to it is a staff member.
And there's been some terrible stories in the last few years about that.
Yeah, which leads me to, if you're at a convention like Essen, where there is a history of professional thieves, and when I say professional, I mean these people are rehearsed and they know what they're doing. Like at this year at Essen, I'm actually going to wear a fanny pack, or one of those what are they called, cash belts?
Yeah.
That is probably a really good way to go. Also, just making it harder to do that. And so the other thing I would highly recommend with cash is, at the end of the day, that cash box comes with you to the hotel room, and then you want to unload that cash box and leave just enough change in it to break a $100 bill or £100 bill or whatever, and then come back in. So if your cash box does go missing, you're not losing more than a day of revenue. Also, be advised that if you are traveling to another country, different countries have different sizes of bills. So your American cash box will not really work in England. This is experience talking.
Right. No, I mean, I think those are the little details that a lot of people don't think about or realize. Yeah. And to some extent, that's why, a smaller con can help you realize those things, forgetting change. I mean, even I was helping somebody with a booth at Gen Con, and the amount of times we switched out and I walked away with all the money and he called me 5 minutes later, I can't make this sale because I need the money, and I'm in a meeting, and I'm guys, I gotta go. I took all the money. I think it's things to keep in mind.
Here's another tip. I just want to give you another tip.
Sure.
That my very first convention, I said I'm gonna be all psychological and clever and drop 5 cents off all my prices, for that little illusion. That would be that's how the big boys do it.
That
right?
Must have been, man.
People got visibly angry as I reached for their change. So there's another: end all your prices. Best if you end all your prices in a 5 or a 0. Yeah. That's just easy. You don't need any singles. You can just go. Yeah. This year at Essen, I may not be able to do that because my prices, the way the exchange works, it falls in between. So I may have to charge €42, which means I have to get a ton of change. But, the important thing is just end it on, if you have to, just end it on a single and don't charge anything fractional. Yeah. Just end it on a whole dollar or a whole pound, whole euro note.
Cash, right?
Yeah.
Well, so listen, Gil, thanks so much for being on and
my pleasure.
Sharing all these con secrets. I mean, we could talk about all sorts of other Kickstarter stuff, but I felt like you are somebody who I think owns that thing, and being at con.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. One last little piece that I wanted to get to. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This is just one that I wanted to get to. Is we were talking about ROI before, and like I said before, do not expect to make money in your make a profit in your first year, but by your second or third year, I think at conventions like Origins or Gen Con, you should generally be able to make your money back at those shows. If you don't make your money back, but you're close, I think that's a successful convention because you've spread word of mouth, you've continued your consistency. If you're continually losing thousands of dollars at shows, that might be a sign that you've got to work on some sort of either reduce your costs or figure out some way to boost up your revenue. That's
Totally.
the last bit I wanted to say.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks
My
everyone
pleasure.
for watching, and play some great games. Bye.
Bye.